in pursuit of health and wisdom. Sapio with Buck Joffrey.
Welcome back to Sapio with Buck Joffrey. This is Buck Joffrey, and I'm here with Dr. Stephen Sideroff. He is an internationally recognized psychologist, executive, and medical consultant, and he's also an expert in resilience, longevity, optimal performance, addiction, neurofeedback, and mental health. He's published pioneering research in all these areas, and he's an associate professor in the departments of psychiatry and biobehavioral sciences and rheumatology at UCLA's Geffen School of Medicine. He's the founder and former clinical director of the Stress Strategies Program of UCLA Santa Monica Hospital and former clinical director of Moonview Treatment and Optimal Performance Center, and has helped to establish innovative treatments approaches in optimal functioning mind-body medicine in the U.S., China, Europe, and hosted summits in longevity, resilience, and leadership. Finally, he's the author of The 9 Pillars of Resilience, the proven path to master stress, slow aging, and increased vitality. That was, you've been up to a lot of stuff there. Stephen, how are you?
I'm doing great, Buck. It's a pleasure to be on your show with you.
Thank you. Well, it's great to have you. And, obviously, this is a big topic as it relates to life these days. But why don't we start off with a definition? The word resilience actually is thrown around quite a bit now, and in many contexts. Perhaps you could kind of give us a definition of what resilience means to you as it pertains to health and some of the research you're doing.
Certainly, I'm happy to do that. So, we're born with this amazing ability to adapt to our environment, to circumstances. But we adapt to our childhood environment, and then to a great extent, our ability to adapt gets frozen to the lessons of our childhood. And so resilience is really, in my definition, the ability to regain that sense of adaptability. A lot of people talk about resilience as the ability to bounce back. I like to say that we want to do more than just bounce back to where we started from when we encountered a stress.
Yeah.
That the goal is every time we encounter a stressful experience, every time we have a challenge in life, we want to learn the lessons of those challenges so that the next stress we encounter, we're better off. We know more. We have expanded our capacity. So I refer to that as the ability to bounce forward, where we're learning every day from experience and developing better approaches to life. To me, that's real resilience.
That's important, a distinction, because I think sometimes there is, some of the definitions that are used there relate to sort of reserve, and that you're talking about more, I think, plasticity, being able to be flexible and being able to sort of be like water, as Sing Sun would say, as a Chinese philosopher would say. Is that right?
That's important, but the reserves is also important.
Uh-huh.
And I like to say that we all have just a certain amount of personal energy.
Yeah.
And our brain body are continually making choices. Do I send that energy into defend and protect because I see danger, I'm experiencing stress, or do I send it into my body for healing and growth? Do I send it to my kidneys so that they do a better job of purifying our blood? We don't have an unlimited amount, and so it's always important to maximize the use of how we use our energies. We wake up in the morning. If we focus on what can go wrong today, we already activate our fight or flight response using up that energy. So how we think, how we feel, all of these things play a role in the use and the reserves of energy that we have.
Is resilience, is it a trait that you're born with, or is it nurture?
It's more something that you nurture and that you develop, and that goes along with my notion that resilience incorporates a growth mindset, so that if we notice something that we're not that good at, instead of feeling like we're stuck being not that good, with a growth mindset, we engage in some process of learning and development to get better at that ability.
Right. So in your book, you talk about sort of 9 pillars of resilience. Do you want to talk about some of those? Maybe that would be a good place for us to sort of dig into this a little deeper.
Yes, of course. I've distilled what I consider to be all the factors that go into an optimal life down into these 9 pillars. And it begins with the first one, which is our relationship with ourselves. And here's where a lot of people get stuck. If you listen to their internal voice, they could be self-critical, self-judgmental. You could walk into a room where you're going to meet people and that voice might say, they're going to judge you. Or it might say, be careful, you might say the wrong thing, and create anxiety as a result of our relationship to ourselves, how we talk to ourselves. And the way we talk to ourselves is based on lessons of childhood. So this is an important pillar of resilience, recognizing when we have this negativity toward ourselves. And I like to contrast that with what I've identified as a healthy internal voice. So a healthy internal voice speaks to us from a place of love, compassion, acceptance, support, and care. So it talks to us from a positive perspective. And so right off the bat, we can take a look at how we talk to ourselves, because that can create unnecessary stress in our lives.
You brought an interesting point up, which is, a lot of these things are developed in childhood. I mean, certainly a lot of just thinking about different parenting styles, and certainly the way, I was brought up as, a child of immigrants, and versus the way I am with my own children. I mean, it's a pretty big difference, in terms of positive reinforcement and that kind of thing. So a lot of that is, just determined by the way you're brought up, huh?
It's determined by the way you're brought up. And here is the key, is that you don't have to stay with those lessons.
Yeah.
We didn't choose those lessons. You didn't choose the lessons that you got from your parents. So now as an adult, we can revisit this and say, is this a good message that I'm giving myself? Or do I need to find a healthier way to talk to myself? Mm-hmm. And this is really at the foundation of our sense of confidence in ourselves. Anxiety, depression is how we learn and how we decide to speak to ourselves and treat ourselves.
Certainly, I mean, it makes sense, but people listening might be going, well, that's not an easy task. I've been talking to myself this way for 40 years. And, suddenly I'm going to tell myself that, I shouldn't be talking about this. It might not be quite that easy.
No, it's not easy, but the important thing is it's doable.
Okay.
And the important thing is that if you follow a regular practice, it will happen. So yes, the old patterns have a lot of power to them because our brains are literally imprinted with those lessons. But yes, we are all blessed with neuroplasticity, which means that we can engage in new learning that ultimately can literally replace the lessons of our childhood. But it requires this regular attention. So what I encourage people that I work with to do is, number one, anytime you're starting to feel upset, uncomfortable, anxious, I guarantee it's because of some negative message we're giving ourselves.
Sure. So
when you feel upset, that's a signal. What's the message I'm giving myself? And if you listen, it might be, you're not going to do well. You should have done better. Some kind of judgment or expectation of danger. And I suggest that people shift over to the qualities of a healthy internal voice and speak from that voice as a way of beginning that process of shifting and changing perspective and how you talk to yourself.
What would be another major pillar?
So another one would be the fourth pillar, which is physical balance and mastery. And so if you think about your day, throughout the day, there are stimuli triggering danger, threat, be on guard. And we have these signals throughout the day. It may be looking at a bill. It may be encountering somebody at work. It may be a conflict with a friend. So that we have many triggers and that trigger the fight or flight response. But how many triggers do we have for the opposite, safety, recovery?
Right.
Almost none. So this imbalance in our environment, in our lives, keeps the activation branch of our nervous system, the sympathetic branch, activated and gives us very little time in recovery, in the opposite, the parasympathetic branch. And this literally results in autonomic dysregulation, which I would suggest is a primary factor in most illnesses that we experience.
You know, it's interesting because you think of this this problem, and you know, part of it you might think, well, gosh, this is a problem of modern society. But I mean, there's a reason we have these instincts, right? I mean, if just from an evolutionary standpoint, reacting to dangers like a lion or, you know, something that's going to come and eat you or try to kill you, you're going to be rewarded for responding to those rapidly and quickly. And there really isn't much of a reward system, you know, for having a meal. There really isn't something that's giving you that from an evolutionary standpoint is really giving you a pat on the back or a reason to reward you for things that don't scare you and make you run away.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And this is why we have difficulty bringing these two systems into balance. And it's also why people have resistance to doing it, because, as you say, our stress response serves a purpose. In fact, if you think about all the successes you've had in your life, I guarantee most, if not all, of your successes have been associated with stress.
Sure.
And so that linking of stress with success literally links them in our brains to create a bias toward stress. And in fact, the stress response serves us within a certain range. There's a certain, what I call a stress sweet spot. But most of us overshoot that based on what I've just been talking about, the imbalance and how much time we spend in the stress response and how much time in recovery. So the fourth pillar is about finding ways to restore balance.
And what would be some of those ways of restoring balance?
So number one, we lose some of our abilities to go down into the deeper places of calm because we're continually activating the nervous system. So we have to find some practice to literally restore the body's ability to go into deeper places of calm. A relaxation exercise, a meditation exercise, biofeedback, some form of activity that's retraining the nervous system into this place of balance. So that's one thing. And I encourage everybody to find 10 minutes a day to practice this, to literally restore that ability. And those 10 minutes are not just learning to relax for those 10 minutes. Every time you do it, you're investing in a training process so that you get better and better at being able to do it. And then I encourage people to look for what I call islands of safety in your day, times in which you could say to yourself, okay, I'm safe. I could let down my guard. I can give my body that opportunity to go into a place of balance. And then a third technique I encourage people to do is identify something in your environment, such as walking through a doorway, that you do throughout the day, and whenever you go through a doorway, use that as a reminder. Let me check in with my body. Let me take a few breaths. Let me let go. Are my shoulders tense? Is my jaw tense? Let me take just a few moments to let go. So all of these things encourage restoring some level of balance in the two branches of the nervous system.
You talk about relationships, purpose, and self-care as well. Do you want to talk about sort of how those contribute to resilience?
Yes. So I actually wrote an article for Psychology Today recently where I said, purpose is the ultimate in use it or lose it.
Sure.
And I think it's so important for people to have purpose so that they have a reason for waking up. They have a reason for living. Because when you have that reason, you literally are sending messages to your body. I need to be healthy because there's reason for me to be living.
Yeah.
I have some important purpose. And so that sends a message to our bodies. Stay healthy. I have reasons to live, to make a difference in the world.
I mean, that
So
actually
that's
makes
why
sense even from an evolutionary perspective, if you think about it, right? If you're part of a tribe and you're just dead weight, your genetics are probably not useful anymore to the tribe. So trying to have a sense that you belong and that you're actually contributing to society probably does create some biochemical pathways that help you stay healthy.
Exactly. Because from an evolutionary perspective, we're designed to live through childbirth, rearing, and bringing our offsprings to their own independence. But then we're designed to die off because then we're, as you say, we're just dead weight for a species.
Right.
But if we have purpose, we can literally now, with what we know about epigenetics, we can literally redesign how our cells are functioning based on having this purpose in life.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And when you talk about it in terms of epigenetics, tell me what you mean by that.
So our genes are fixed, but we have this ability through epigenetics, which means on top of our genes, that how we engage with our environment literally can alter the ways that the genes are either expressed or not expressed. And so we have that kind of control in terms of how we live our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And based on my 9 pillars, how we get into optimal functioning. So, for example, my 5th pillar is mental balance and mastery. So if we focus on what can go wrong, or we have catastrophic expectations, or if we start dealing with something by saying, this is going to be difficult, we send our brain and body in one direction. On the other hand, if we say, I'm going to be able to handle this, if we say, I'm going to focus on the positive, what can go right, we literally send our body's physiology in a different direction. And that's something that everybody has control over, is that kind of positive mindset, growth mindset.
Sure. The final pillars focus on some cognitive strategies in emotional intelligence. Why are these so crucial?
Well, our emotions impact how our bodies function. You know, if you are in a positive emotional state and you look at your physiology, for example, if you look at heart rate variability, you will see that when you're in a positive emotional state, your heart rate goes into this what's referred to as coherent pattern, where as you breathe in, your heart rate speeds up. As you breathe out, your heart rate slows down. And you have this nice, smooth pattern when you're in a positive emotional state of like gratitude and appreciation. If you shift into a negative state, such as frustration, anger, and we look at that heart rate pattern, we find it goes into a very chaotic pattern. And so emotions literally impact how our physiology functions, because that coherent pattern is a signal that your two branches of your nervous system are in balance. So we can
Yeah.
literally, with positive emotions, help ourselves into a more effective physiological state.
Yeah, the whole concept too of heart rate variability is very interesting to me. I guess higher heart rate variability is more suggestive of more vagal tone. Is that correct? I mean, so it's interesting though, because it seems like some people are just wired a certain way, and it's very difficult to change those heart rate variability numbers. How much do you look at those numbers as you're going along, trying to see if people are getting better or progressing?
Mm-hmm. I do my own heart rate variability training, and I notice when I'm consistently practicing, like every day, only 5 to 10 minutes, that I see changes in some of the measures of heart rate variability. And when I work with clients, I also find that with continuous practicing, they find the benefits as well. And that's why I think it's so important for people to realize that you're not stuck with what you have or where you're at, that we have this tremendous ability to improve if we hold the intention to follow a particular practice.
And there's reason for this beyond sort of, obviously everybody wants to be happier and joyful, but there's also a physiologic reason. You've done extensive research on resilience and longevity. Could you share some of your findings from that work?
Yeah, I actually have a study right now that I'm about to do where I'm going to collaborate with a company that assesses our biological age. So I
Sure.
imagine you've
Oh yeah.
talked about this before.
Yeah.
And so I've developed a questionnaire based on my model of resilience, a 40-item questionnaire. And we're going to take a group of people who've already gotten their biological age, and we're going to give them my questionnaire with the hypothesis that the people who score the highest on my resilience questionnaire will show the slowest aging and the greatest discrepancy between their biological and chronological age.
Yeah.
I'm a one case study. So I did my biological age a couple of years ago, and it was 20 years younger than my chronological age.
Mm-hmm.
And I live my life based on this model of resilience that I've been sharing in my book.
Tell us about your actual sort of, so you must have, you have a program, and like that people, is that part of what's in the book, the 9 pillars? Is the program?
The book lays out the 9 pillars, but it does it in a step-by-step programmatic fashion. And I do this because, when people think about dealing with stress, it feels overwhelming. Well, there's so much I need to do. I have to deal with my exercise. I have to deal with my thinking and my emotions. And so in my book, I lay it out and I say that the goal is to be on the path, and the path is alongside you every single day. And so all you have to do is take a few steps based on the model, and it puts you on the path. And so today you can be successful. You don't have to wait till you get further down the road of achieving all of these 9 pillars. Today, if you take a few steps, it puts you on the path. And now you could feel good about how you focused today on just a few steps. And then ultimately, this creates motivation and momentum to continuing with the process.
Sure.
And that's the goal in neuroplasticity, is to follow some program, some path that develops change over time.
Is there anything that I haven't asked you that I think is important, that you think is important to address?
I want to, back on what we were talking about with heart rate
Yeah.
variability and emotions. One of the things that's very interesting, research has shown that, for instance, Buck, if you and I were in the same room and standing next to each other, I monitored your brain waves, I'd be able to pick up my heart rate pattern in your brain waves. And now if we combine that with what I said before, that when I'm in a positive emotional state, my heart rate pattern is very coherent. And you can be picking that up in your brain waves. But if I'm upset, I'm, on guard, I have a very different heart rate pattern, and you'd pick that up in your brain waves. And it sort of addresses why we feel different feelings when we're with one person versus another person.
Yeah.
And it also tells us the impact we have on other people based on the emotions and feelings that we carry. And that's why it's so important. And this is my sixth pillar of resilience, which is emotional balance and mastery. And it's why it's so important to monitor any feelings that we're carrying sort of as excess baggage. And you want to, anytime you notice that you're carrying feelings that are from yesterday or a week or a month ago, you want to engage in some process to find a way to express those feelings so you have them moving through your body so that you can let them go, so that you're not carrying excess emotional baggage, because it can only get in your own way in relationships, but also our bodies literally have to hold those feelings in, and this interferes with flow of energy and resilience as well.
Interesting. The book again is The 9 Pillars of Resilience, Proven Path to Master Stress, Slow Aging, and Increase Vitality. Stephen, how is there any other resources where we can turn to if we want to learn more?
Sure. So in addition to the book, my website is drstephensideroff.com. I have a free relaxation audio program people can get downloaded from my website. And if people want to reach out to me, sideroff@ucla.edu, I'd be happy to send you my resilience assessment booklet. And that describes the 9 pillars. And it also has my 40-item questionnaire that someone can take and self-score and get their own personal resilience profile. So those are 3 different approaches that people can follow up with.
Thank you so much. Dr. Stephen Sideroff, love to have you out again soon.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Sapio with Buck Joffrey. A quick reminder that while I am, in fact, a surgeon, nothing I say should be construed as medical advice. Now, make sure to include your physician in any medical decisions you make. And also, if you're enjoying the show, please make sure to show your support with a like, share, or subscribe. Until next time, this is Buck Joffrey for Sapio with Buck Joffrey.